Well, I think Creta is one model. I mean, we've always said it's Creta Motor India instead of Hyundai Motor India. There's too much banking on this one model.
How can Hyundai protect its number two position? And one of the key things that came out clearly that the company needs products.
Hyundai also has persisted in segments that are not growing.
Yes.
I think they don't want to exit segments.
From a Hyundai's perspective, their hybrid is going to be extremely critical. And that is where I think they will be able to wean away volumes from the mid-size SUV market.
The Indian brands have been having a good time. But let's face it, long term, the Hyundai has, more firepower, more global resource.
Absolutely.
The ability to, to draw from all over the world to develop products. Hello and welcome back to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. Now, this week we are going to be talking about Hyundai. The Korean company has been in India since 1998, but it has reached an inflection point. It's gone public. It's had an IPO. It has just announced that it is launching a barrage of new models, but at the same time, its number two position has been under threat. In fact, they've even lost the number two position coming into the financial year. And I'm Hormazd Sorabjee, and I have with me...
I'm Ketan Thakkar, Hormazd. Slipping to number 4 position. That was a massive surprise for the market. Last financial year, we did see that there was a neck-and-neck battle between Hyundai and Tata Motors. And in no time, Mahindra and Mahindra came into the reckoning because of its fantastic range of SUVs. And no one expected Hyundai to slip to number 4.
But I think that's just in the opening months of the financial year, isn't
That's
it?
correct.
So they've got this whole year to fight back. I don't think they want to lose their position, but I don't know whether they can hold on to it, which we'll talk about as well.
Yeah, that's right, Hormazd. That's in the opening innings of this financial year. But clearly, they don't want to give it up. It has been a position that they've held on to, and very few markets in the world that they have crossed to number 2, number 3 position. Over the last 6 to 8 months, we have seen, also because of the IPO, we have seen, influx of global management into India. And they've been keeping a very close eye on how the stock performs, how the company performs. And all that visit happens while the market share is under pressure.
And clearly the stock not performing as per what it opened during listing. So it is below that. So I think obviously clearly a lot of pressure on that front as well.
Indeed. And, so it's it's because of 2 factors, Hormazd. One, that company has not had major product launch over the last 2.5 years. And on the contrary, its rivals, Tata Motors and Mahindra have had series of SUV launches. And that has had a significant impact on the company's volumes and market share. The company still continues to enjoy very good profit margins. The company still continues to operate at very good capacity utilization. But out in the market, more and more mindshare is moving towards Indian brands. And that is something that headquarters is watching very closely.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because really the kind of the rise of the Indian brands, I think that's worthy of a podcast in itself, has been absolutely amazing. But I think as you said, I think Hyundai is one company. They are mega. They've got a lot of firepower. They've got R&D. They've got cash. They've got, let's say, a global footprint, so they can draw from other countries. That gives them global scale. So, but I don't know, what is it that's made them slip? More than product, I just think that, a lot of the products which should be doing better are just not doing better. For example, Exter, being one of them. I personally think it's the best compact SUV. I think, or subcompact SUV, whatever you want to call it, because it sits in a segment below Venue. I personally think it's overall better engineered than something like the Punch, but the Punch has got such a pull. It's doing far better than Hyundai. So, maybe in the network, I'm not sure what the issue is.
So, Hormazd, over the last 2.5 years, we have actually seen the sub 12 lakh market, the mainstream market, the core of the market really facing the stress.
Yeah.
It's only the premium end of the market.
The center of gravity has moved up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the upgrader space which is still continuing to sustain. Despite the high base, the Indian market still continues to reach a new peak. It's a core of the market, and one may actually see the non-SUV market, which is where majority of the challenge lies.
Right.
And that is where we've even seen Tata Motors losing share. It's because your hatchback is under pressure. because you have a subcompact SUV there. Your sedan is under pressure. So it's because of that the category of buyer at that price point probably is waiting. The replacement cycle is getting prolonged. Of course, the stock market movement, the overall economic activity, and the geopolitical situation. So the sentiment plays a very, very big role. And that price point, at that price point, the consumer is very, very sensitive. And it has been the case for Tata Motors, for Hyundai, for Maruti Suzuki. These are the three companies who actually have a significant part of their portfolio in the sub 12 lakh space. And that is one of the factors why that you've seen Hyundai actually losing share.
Right. And, but Ketan, at some level, I think there are some structural challenges as well. I think one, going for the IPO, I mean, obviously, it unlocks a lot from a company standpoint, but there are so many more stakeholders out now. There are a lot many more compliances. I think when it was a fully owned subsidiary of the Korean parent, they could be far more nimble. Absolutely. They could take a lot more risks.
Absolutely.
And Koreans are very, very fast.
Yes.
In reacting. They're very aggressive. But do you think that could have slowed down a bit? With when you go public, I think it does come with certain constraints.
Absolutely, Hormazd. When you are trying to woo public, and there the biggest draw is how much profit you're making as against how much volumes you're selling. At the end of the day, you have to return money to the shareholders. You may have the best possible volumes out there, but if you're bleeding, then it's a challenge. So over the last few years, I think the overt focus was on protecting the bottom line, or rather shoring up the bottom line. And that definitely took a lot of attention. Could they have played more aggressive game as we have seen Hyundai playing in the decade of 2010 to 2020? Probably they could have, but the focus was different. Right. They were actually protecting their bottom line.
In fact, it's quite interesting. Let's talk about Hyundai and its transition. Earlier, a very strong value brand.
Yes.
Right now, you can argue that they still give value, but their products are expensive, but they're packing a lot more into it. They're no longer playing at the lower end of the market. In fact, in terms of brand perception, they've even overtaken Honda.
Yes.
So really their brand is a lot stronger right now.
Absolutely.
They've dabbled at the top end, with some success, but still, I don't know how successful they can be when you go above 30-35 lakhs. Tucson not very successful there. We'll talk about new products. Palisade is something that they could be looking at. Does Hyundai have the brand strength to really operate successfully in those segments? That's what we'll have to see. But just coming back again to their focus on profits. Their cars are no longer at the affordable end. Obviously, the products are very good. I think they're really superbly engineered, especially from an Indian standpoint. They have this really, good combination, a very special combination of understanding India, and having global technology as well. So they know what to bring here, what not to bring here, and how to deploy that technology in the Indian market. So I think, even Creta to me is a classic example of Hyundai success, using all these factors and playing to all its strengths in India and globally.
And Hormazd, that is going to grow. Over $1 billion is going to be invested in India in R&D, and that is beyond about 10,000 crore that the company is investing for its products.
I think that's the only way to go, because clearly, R&D, as we know, it has to be local for two reasons. One is the speed, and of course, cost.
Right.
So we've seen companies which have to go back, especially the Europeans, have to go back to headquarters for every small change. Totally uncompetitive, and they've seriously lost out in the market. But Ketan, coming back to, let's say, the sales slide for Hyundai, I don't know whether again there's something structurally, because if you see the organization, the sense one gets is you've got a very strong top management, but below that, it doesn't seem so strong. Whereas you take Maruti, the way even a regional manager is empowered, or the clout he has over the dealers seems to be a lot stronger. Absolutely. There seems to be this kind of I would even say a weak let's say middle management area within the company. And, I think that also could be a problem in just getting the company to move metal.
Absolutely critical, Hormazd. I mean, as you go deeper into the country, and given the reach and the penetration that Hyundai has in India, you definitely want your regional team to be empowered and take those critical calls. But like you mentioned, Hormazd, earlier, we've seen Hyundai to be agile and take quick decisions. And while the numbers have been under pressure, They've unlike the other players in the market, Hyundai has seen a marginal decline. It's the others who are actually marching ahead. And that is something that is one of the factors of discussion was how can Hyundai protect its number two position? And one of the key things that came out clearly that the company needs products. And that is after that, we saw, with the frequent visit of the top management in India.
And they've announced 26 new models. I think that's the reason why we are having this podcast. I think 26 new models. But let's be honest, a lot of them are facelifts, a lot of them are N-line variants as well. So not all new, but still that's a huge number. But I think clearly a strong pipeline. And I think that's really what gives you let's say, confidence that Hyundai can fight back, hold on to its number two position. I don't know whether they'll do that this year. Mahindra has been an absolute rocket in this segment. Absolute superstar. Dream run they've had. And again, they had the products to do that. But I think looking at the products, Creta EV, I think quite disappointing. I mean, obviously you see Creta selling 17,000 a month at its peak.
Right.
And the EV variant, you would think at least, you'd get about 20%, 15%. It's nowhere near that. We've seen the Creta EV start with around 1,700 in Jan, and I think it's gone below around 700 in April. So very, very small. I think, that's come as a bit of a surprise and shock. I don't know whether it should. I've also talked to you about what the EV buyer is. I mean, we've driven the Creta EV. Yes. It's a superbly engineered product. Everything works really well. But I think the one thing it lacks is wow factor.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what EV buyers want today. They just want wow factor, because if you see the BE6 and even the 9e, I think in many ways the Creta EV is more sorted in its engineering than either of these. But I just think, it just lacks that wow factor, which Mahindra knows exactly has a pulse of the consumer and what they want.
Just too similar to the existing Creta, isn't it?
Exactly. I think the way they've looked at it is not as maybe an EV as a standalone, but just a Creta with another powertrain.
Yes.
Have petrol, diesel, and you can have an EV as well. So I think, but an EV buyer is a different kind of persona.
Absolutely.
And, he's not a petrol or diesel buyer, either or CNG buyer. It's a completely different buyer. He is experimenting, he's still, and maybe not early adopter, but early majority. So still, they're not
at a very early stage.
Yeah, they are, people who are not risk averse, for example. So they're quite experimental at this stage. And I guess in that sense, they want something that really stands out.
And, that is a challenge we have when you have the ICE converted EVs. There's a limitation to which you could extend the project design to, right?
That's right. Well, they worked really well. On the flip side, let's face it, Nexon, it was absolute copybook way of getting into India. I think when the history of the auto industry will be written, Tata Motors' foray into the EV space, how it just flew ahead of everyone and caught them napping is great. Sad what's happened right now, how much market share they're losing. But I think the ICE conversion had its time.
Right.
I think that time is over.
Absolutely.
People want the next phase, which is skateboards. MG Windsor has proved, what a skateboard can do and why it is so popular. You get a lot of advantages with a skateboard, better packaging, different design, more innovation can be packed into the car, unlike an ICE conversion.
Absolutely, Hormazd. Hormazd, there also grounds up EV platform being explored. The first mass market EV is going to be a skateboard, but what we understand, which is where the majority of the action is going to be 20 to 30 lakh bracket, there's going to be a grounds up EV platform. And they're definitely going to have multiple products in that space. Yes, you're going to have a Creta alternative based on the ICE platform, but there is a grounds up EV. So grounds up EV from that 20 to 30 lakh bracket, something to take on XEV 9e, probably not a coupe, but definitely a C and D segment EV.
I think globally also, they had the eGMP platform and 800 volt architecture right at the top for Ioniq 5, very expensive, meant for kind of, the big key developed markets, North America, Europe, where it's doing really well. But I think they've also been working on a sub eGMP platform, maybe a 400 volt architecture,
absolutely,
for lower cost for markets like us. And that's the one that we
price sensitive markets.
Exactly.
That's the reason why, while the company has said that there'll be 6 EVs in the future, they've also reiterated this fact that their future EV lineup is going to be a combination of both ICE converted EV as well as the skateboard EV.
Yeah.
So definitely,
Yeah, I think you can't do away with the ICE converted, because you get the scale of both ICE and EV. So I think you're right. It'll have to be a combination of both. I mean, a lot of people are doing that still. So I think clearly, I think that is there to stay. I think we're going to see also newer platforms from a lot of OEMs having ICE hybrid and EV on it. So I think it's in this transition, you've just got to be flexible to be able to tweak your product line to where the demand is, and it's not always going to be EV all the way.
And Hormazd, I also feel from a Hyundai's perspective, their hybrid is going to be extremely critical, and that is where I think they will be able to wean away volumes from the mid-size SUV market. They're already very big there. With the hybrid, they kind of reinforce their presence in the segment.
My only worry about the hybrid, or challenge about the hybrid, is how cost effective will they be able to make it. And let's assume that the hybrids are not going to get any tax breaks. Of course, this is going back and forth. We just read all the EV automakers are also, or the EV players are up in arms about SOPs being given to hybrid. That again is a separate topic. But let's assume that the kind of taxation remains the same. There's no change in GST or rates for hybrids. Will they be able to make it cost effectively? That's where Maruti really scores. That's where Maruti can do it. If there's only company that can do it, it's Maruti. Even they are struggling. So I don't know how cheap or affordable Hyundai's hybrids will be. That's really the challenge, because clearly, from a cost perspective, they just can't match Maruti's cost structure.
So they're just banking on the group purchase might. Kia will also have a hybrid with its new gen.
That's right. Yeah, but there's a lot of localization needed.
Absolutely.
You can get the technology, but the
you can't go to the scale of Maruti.
That's right. And Maruti has already localized the hybrid battery cells. With Toshiba, as you know. Yeah. So clearly, and that's for hybrid, not even EV. So they've started the localization first for hybrid batteries.
Right.
LTO technology.
Right.
So I think, you first need to localize the hybrid battery pack, at least localize as much of the hybrid powertrain to have a fighting chance, to be in, let's say, reach of the delta, or let's say the gap between conventional ICE and a hybrid. It has to be, within a certain range. It's been there with the Grand Vitara and the Toyota Hyryder. It wasn't there with the City hybrid, and clearly that bombed. So really, I think that is where the challenge is. How much of the gap can you narrow between the ICE and the hybrid powertrain?
And
localization is the key for that.
I think it's a crazy headache for automakers, given the pace of development. It first started with ICE converted, then people started moving towards skateboard, and like you mentioned, Hormazd, now if the penetration levels are going to be lower, I think then you definitely need a flexible architecture that could do everything for you in the future. And we've spoken about Mahindra's flexible architecture.
A lot of people are looking at it, looking at that right now. It's slightly costlier because, you have to, you're trying to get the best of all worlds, not always optimal. That comes with a certain cost, because also you have to make compromises. But I think that is the safe bet right now. I think, as you say, Hyundai will be looking at that. But Ketan, an entry-level EV, the first mass-market EV from Hyundai by end 2026?
Yes, Hormazd. And
what's the code?
HE1i, as they call it.
HE1i.
That's the code, Hormazd.
Right.
So again, I just feel that the next 18 months are going to be extremely challenging from Hyundai's perspective. We have the all-new Venue coming in first by October of this year. And friends tell me that, it is going to be like a baby Creta. So clearly, and there's a lot of excitement within. It does about even with the outgoing generation, Venue still does about 8,000. Yeah. So they're pretty confident that with the new generation Venue, that they'll be able to bring it back to 10,000 units, kind of a number. But then you...
it's a good number in such a competitive segment.
Absolutely, Hormazd, absolutely. And I mean, that's what they're looking at, about 10,000, 10 to 11,000 units per month. But apart from that, the all-new models from Hyundai, in the middle of next year, we will see a crossover based on i20.
Bayon.
It's called the Bayon. Yes, that's how it is sold globally. So that's a major intervention that we're going to see from Hyundai.
A major intervention, a completely new product line.
All new product.
They're getting into this crossover space.
Crossover space, again, the core of the market, the belly of the market, around 12 lakh. And potentially, Hormazd, another scoop for our readers and our viewers, it may be powered by a 1.2 liter TGDI. The turbocharged, they have the 1 liter turbocharged engine, they have the 1.5 liter turbocharged, they are working on a 1.2 liter.
Well, you know what the plan for the 1.2 would be? That would be their engine for hybrids also.
Yes.
So I think everyone is looking at a 1.2 for hybrids. Maruti, of course, the Z12V, that's the right capacity, a 3-cylinder unit, of course. You do need a certain amount of capacity to really charge the hybrid system and the batteries. Sometimes a 1 liter or smaller engine isn't good enough. So I think that 1.2 has, a more, let's say, wider application, which could be towards in a hybrid as well. And I remember, I think the past Kia MD let it out that Kia were looking at a 1.2 hybrid for India, about 2 years back. And clearly, if Kia is looking at it, Hyundai is looking at it. So I think we can safely assume that a 1.2 hybrid is on the cards.
Most definitely. But what raised everyone's eyebrows is 26 models. How on earth 26 models is Hyundai going to be bringing out product portfolio bigger than Maruti? Clearly no. And I mean, if I could just give you a little bit more details on the product pipeline, Hormazd.
Right.
So when they say 26, it's actually combination of all powertrains. So for them, ICE is one portfolio, inline is one portfolio, and hybrid and EV is another portfolio.
But still, let's say all new models, at least about 7, 8.
Most definitely. So what we have, Hormazd, let's just go one by one. If I could just reel them out for our viewers. First to go on road would be your all-new Venue, somewhere around October. In order to ensure that the existing pipeline also gets... October 2025. In order to ensure that the existing pipeline is also reinforced, we have the Verna facelift coming somewhere in the month of April 2026.
But that's interesting also. I want to stop you there. Hyundai also has persisted in segments that are not growing.
Yes.
I think they don't want to exit segments.
Yes.
Because you can't get back in. Well, of course, as long as the segments are not dead, they still have some potential, some volume, maybe a slow decline.
Yes.
It's better to be in there. Exactly the same for diesel. No one's going to invest in diesel now. But if you're there, you don't want to give it up. I think no one's going to come in with an all-new sedan now, another automaker. But if you're there, you don't want to give it up. And frankly, not too much competition in the sedan segment.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got the Virtus, which really is giving a fight. The Honda City, I don't know what Honda is doing. That's been their backbone, but clearly they've lost a lot of traction there. So I think Verna does have a role to play, and I don't know what the volumes are now. I've lost track of it. I think it's about
close to 1,200 units, Hormazd. Right. But for them, the good part is that Hyundai uses India as a significant export base. So there was a sizable export volumes that Hyundai was doing of sedans from India.
And don't forget, a sedan also gives scale for the common components.
Absolutely.
Engines, transmissions.
Absolutely.
All that sort of thing. So it just gives that additional scale which this game is all about.
So while the local domestic volumes may be rather subpar, but the global volumes actually make it a viable project for them. So we're going to see an upgraded Verna coming in April or middle of 2026. They're going to infuse some life into Exter as well. Still very early in its life cycle. But one thing that you're going to see more frequently is what our friends assure us.
I hope they... for me, the Exter, what really is a downer or really, kind of dampener is the interior. It's just too dull, too dark, lacks that kind of, let's say, upmarket feel, which you do want. I just hope in the facelift they do that. Because otherwise, honestly, we've been driving the Exter. It's a very well sorted car. Even the engine calibration, everything drives quite well in the city. And when I drive it, I just can't understand why it doesn't sell more.
I mean, it's just that the volumes are falling. They still do about 6,000, 7,000 a month. But when you look at what Punch does, definitely the volumes are much lesser. And definitely company sees more potential there, given the fact that the entry car buyer is now actually getting into that space. So there's a mid-cycle action, MCA on the Exter, which is again middle of 2026. Then we will have the crossover that we were talking about, Bayon, BC4i as they call it internally, followed by an entry EV, again, 2 all-new models. So next financial year is going to be an active year from Hyundai Motor India perspective. And then we have the long tall Palisade. In the past, we had speculated that it could potentially be a long wheelbase Tucson, but friends tell us that that given the fact that Tucson has had multiple generations in India and has had
Not
subpar volumes
and hasn't really succeeded. But again, I think honestly, the market falls off a cliff in that segment. Once you get past the 20, 25, 30 lakh mark, also I would say up beyond 30, it just drops off a cliff. That's the nature of the market.
Absolutely.
So I think largely because cars like the Tucson, I mean, I'd put it simply, I think why they don't sell, because you've got something so strong like a Creta, which does about 90% of what the Tucson does at about 60% of the price.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very hard value proposition to beat with these cars that come out more. So again, it's more discerning car buyers. I mean, I think the Tucson has its strength. I mean, you see the fit and finish.
Yeah.
I've always compared, let's say, even the piano black finish on a Tucson vis-a-vis the Creta.
Yeah.
And it's just night and day difference. You can see, I mean, without meaning to offend anyone, they're just the local suppliers still don't have the technology, the expertise to give that level of finish the Korean built, Tucson has. So, yeah, I think, but again, these are small details, very few will appreciate. And overall, as a package, I think that segment itself isn't very large. So, Palisade, I think, will have a challenge. But I think, from Hyundai's point of view, where the brand has gone, it's become more and more premium. As I said, it's become a stronger brand, to take bigger price increases, and people are paying for it, accepting it. It's gone way ahead of Honda, in my opinion. So maybe the time is right for the Palisade to make its entry.
Right, Hormazd. So, the internal thought process is that we've attempted with Tucson, and Indian market calls for something that has imposing road presence, something that is butch, something that is tall.
And the Palisade gives you that.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've seen the Endeavour, we've seen the Fortuner, we've seen even Gloucester in its early days. So clearly they feel that, Palisade is probably right fit for the Indian market, and it's actually something that differentiates the buyer at that 40 lakh rupees price point.
This will be a 50 lakh SUV, I think, 50 lakh.
We were just before the podcast, I was just looking at the price points of Palisade in North America. So it starts at somewhere around 37 lakh in North America, and they want to localize it, and they also want to export it. The interesting part is, with the Palisade, you're going to get the first hybrid from Hyundai Motor India. Right. They've officially confirmed it to the media as well as the investor fraternity. So you're going to get Hyundai getting into the hybrid space, again, another strength area.
Small niche, in a niche segment.
In a niche segment, yes. And they're not going to give up on diesel. Right. So that is something that...
No, I think anyone who's in diesel would be stupid to give up on diesel. It's still 18-19% of the market, and if you take 18-19% of 4.2 million, that's a lot of cars.
Absolutely, Hormazd, absolutely. So your Palisade is expected somewhere in 2028, and around the same time we're going to get all new Creta, Hormazd. They call it the SX3 internally, and it is going to get all the powertrains, right, from petrol, diesel, hybrid, and EV.
Well, I think Creta is one model. I mean, we've always said it's Creta Motor India instead of Hyundai Motor India. There's too much banking on this one model.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you just see the sales vis-a-vis the other models, and I wouldn't be surprised if they throw everything into this. And I think, like with every generation, it can only get, stronger. And we've seen also that their MCAs or their midlife, let's say refreshes are quite substantial.
Significant.
It's not just, bumpers, lights and plastics. They really put a lot into it. They invest a lot into it. And I think that's why, at the end, long term, I'm quite bullish about Hyundai, because they've got the firepower in every which way to compete.
Running up to this podcast, Hormazd, talking to friends within the ecosystem, right from vendors, dealers, friends within the company, one thing that kept coming back again and again, that when Hyundai makes a comeback, it's really for everyone to see. And, friends reminded me of 2007, 2015. They're like, the 2027 is going to be no different. And something that Tarun Garg, the CEO of the company, has been reiterating, let our new products come out. And then you will be able to see the might. So yes, 26 models, Hormazd, I reeled out some half of them. And the others are going to be the replacement. And I know the future of hatchback.
So when you say Creta is coming, it's coming in
2028. February 2028 is when it's going to be coinciding with your CAFE 3 norms.
Right.
So the engines are now being developed, keeping the CAFE 3 regulations in the future.
To be honest, it's a slightly longer, let's say life cycle, because I think the
The previous Creta.
2020.
Yeah.
So 8 years
Yeah.
instead of 6 years. So I think the strategy really is to give more
Mid-cycle actions.
Exactly, in a longer span. And honestly, the car selling, I think the way the business works is that the more you sell and more you extend the life cycle, the more amortization is
Absolutely.
and the more profit you make. Yeah,
And
so quite interesting that they have kind of taken this strategy. And I think with this facelift, it's really freshened up the car. It's for many, it's almost new. So you've just got till 28. I think it's still got a lot of legs.
Yeah, and see, again, that's where the benefit of local R&D center, and they're going to have a test track as well. That's the reason why you have 450 acres. So clearly, you're going to be testing a lot locally. You're going to be validating a lot locally, which means the life cycles will get shorter.
Exactly.
And you're going to be definitely seeing Hyundai more proactive with its new launches.
Absolutely, and it's not just a issue of cost and time. Having your R&D here, it's a question of resource also, because with so much happening, every company's R&D is just chock-a-block with programs.
Right.
It could be EV, it could be future compliances, and at that point, you're going to be prioritizing your top markets or your most lucrative markets.
Absolutely.
But in the case of Hyundai, I think we are number 3 globally for them. Yeah. So we are important, and that makes a huge difference compared to other global OEMs. But I think having a local base will, as you said, I think we'll be seeing many more mid-life cycle refreshes and facelifts at a faster cadence.
Absolutely. And the frequent visits from the headquarters, from the chairman, from the new CEO, and the constant updates that go from India clearly shows that the focus, it is a focus market, and it is a critical market for their future growth. And we are seeing that being translated into more local facilities. You saw an all-new plant in 2024, which is going to go on stream in October. Yeah. Then you have an expanded R&D facility. So clearly they're putting in their money. And you're going to see a lot more action. And the interesting part for me, Hormazd, is just not SUV game. They're also ensuring, like you mentioned, that they're not giving up on the other segments.
Well, look, you can't give up on that. If you want to be number 2, you can't give up on those segments. However small they are, however declined they are, they still amount to sizable volumes. They all add up and give you a certain size, which takes you to number 2.
Absolutely.
So I think, in fact, Hyundai has exited a lot of segments, like at the budget end, Santro has gone.
Right.
So I think clearly, they've realized they can't be exiting all segments. They are still key segments.
Right.
And honestly, strategically as well, it makes sense to be in these segments.
Absolutely.
I mean, even i20, honestly, I'm sure they would have liked it to do better. Premium hatch also under fire from compact SUVs as well, and very few players in that market. Yes. I think maybe just 3.
Baleno, Altroz,
and Toyota, which is actually just 3 because it's Baleno. So that's it. So you just got 3 players in there. So very, very few players in the hatchback segment. So
in fact, I was just going to come to that, Hormazd. About, you keep tracking the developments of the company, and 6-8 months back, there was no all new i20. They actually wanted to give up i20 for the Bayon crossover because it is overlapping in the price bracket. And also Alcazar. There was a thought that potentially there may not be a new Alcazar. But now what we understand as part of this long lineup of models that they're looking at, there is an Alcazar replacement, and there is an all-new i20 being relooked at. Yeah. Earlier, the thought process was, let's just drop it.
Yeah.
There's a new generation of Neos coming. There is a new generation of Aura coming. So, like you mentioned, as a number 2 player, you want to be there right from the entry level, right up to the top end. And the discussion over Genesis has been going on for a while.
Yeah, I don't know whether Genesis is going to happen. I think, was it too much of a distraction? I personally think it is. You've got other issues in the core segments or some of the core segments which you need to fix. I think sometimes Genesis is a big distraction because however big or small, it still takes a certain amount of management bandwidth, which then, you have to kind of sacrifice that kind of bandwidth from your core business, which desperately needs total focus right now.
Absolutely. I think in the previous podcast, you mentioned that, probably with all new EV earlier, probably they missed out in terms of timing. The luxury car market right now is under stress, just like the mainstream car market. Maybe it's the right time to ride the wave rather than come in when the market is facing challenges. So probably, it's still, there was a team that was set up internally, Hormazd, and we had said that potentially 25, 26 company may look at Genesis. Jury is still out there. I mean, looking at the way the market is moving, it's still difficult. But I mean, just before we were coming, a colleague of ours spoke about the fact that potentially that they may they may look at Genesis for future.
Yeah, so really, I mean, Genesis is something it's been on off. We don't know, but honestly, I think really they've got a lot on their plate, and I think Hyundai clearly a company which you can never ever see. I wouldn't say write off. That's not going to happen. But I don't think it's a company you can see being anywhere not near the top.
Absolutely.
I think that's what it is. Obviously, a big gap from Maruti. Everyone has whether that they will ever catch Maruti. That is a separate discussion. Possibly, you need to be in more segments, and some segments Hyundai obviously don't want to be in, which is at the entry level, where there is volume. But I think clearly, as I said, this mix of aggressiveness, or aggression, this mix of the products, the technology. I mean, all said and done, I mean, you can't even write off that EV. The EVs are fantastic. The Ioniq 5 is amazing. Yes, the Chinese are giving a fight, but it's not that the Koreans are far behind.
Absolutely.
Even their EVs are absolutely superb. I think they've just got to be able to make it cost effectively. They are also localizing a lot.
Yes.
We know they've got into a partnership with Excite also for cells. So I think clearly there's a lot happening. And I think it all stems down to one thing, this is a market that is super important for Hyundai. They've kind of toiled in reaching this position after more than 25 years. And, there are very few companies that can really crack India, and Hyundai is one of them. And I think, yes, they have under a lot of pressure right now, especially sales pressure. I think they have to fix their sales network. That's, I think, job number one, because they should be selling more than what they're selling right now, even with the existing product line. I'm sure they will work on that. And, company you can't ever underestimate. And, yes, the Indian brands have been having a good time. But let's face it, long term, the Hyundai has more firepower, more global resource.
Absolutely.
The ability to, to draw from all over the world to develop products.
Absolutely.
And the export potential that they have.
Absolutely.
So that really plays, to their strengths and kind of puts them in a position that makes them very, very formidable going forward.
Absolutely, Hormazd. So, some of these factors like powertrain diversity, they have all the powertrains.
Yeah.
They have aggressive product plan for the future. Again, we've not discussed FTAs. Hyundai has plants all over the world. One of the friends suggested that why not bring in Palisade if US imports are allowed at a cheaper rate.
Exactly. You can import the Palisade.
You can import the Palisade at a much. You could shorten the market launch for Palisade.
Yeah, geographically they are very well positioned. They have plants everywhere.
Absolutely. With the India EU FTA, if something makes relevance, there's something that is of relevance from Europe.
Right.
You bring out products from there, and the local R&D footprint. So all these factors actually tell you that the company definitely is a behemoth in its own right, and it has all the right fundamental pillars for the future growth and the speed and agility, Hormazd.
You can't.
I was just asking friends as to the new Venue comes in end of the year and the all new EV comes in by end of 2026. But then how do you manage, given the fact that Tata Motors is going to have the Sierra coming in, they are coming out of the facelift of Punch, Mahindra's BEVs are there, the Thar Rocks is still doing well, the Scorpio is still doing well. How do you protect? So a friend kind of indicated to me that with the existing models, there's a reinforcement plan. So we've always seen Hyundai actually being the first in the category with new features. Sunroof, I understand, Hormazd, now probably they may democratize it to even base variant.
Right.
It's something that the Indian consumer is actually looking forward to.
Exactly. I know the sunroof phenomenon is something which baffles me and baffles a lot of people.
Yeah. So what they've realized is that with the market is currently very heavily discounted, and a lot of people are actually downgrading to a lower variant. So they are swooping up the lower variant with a lot more features.
Right.
They are in a way actually democratizing a lot of these high-end features into the entry-level base variant. I'm hearing that probably there may be a sunroof on a diesel Alcazar as well, something
Right.
that was missing.
Yeah, that's
So they keep bridging those small gaps.
I think you're right. And in the end of the day, at the end of the day, Hyundai always first in class features
With all the features.
cool seats, all that in certain segments which was not there. And I think what has happened in the Indian market, because customers are lapping up, it's become a features arm race.
Absolutely.
And that's really what is defining success for a lot of brands. You can take Mahindra, I think, is a classic example. It's really the feature set, the wow factor, which really, is giving them this sort of phenomenal growth. I think Hyundai were guys who invented this whole concept. They are going to fight back. So I think, Ketan, with that, we'll wrap. We've had a great conversation.
Yes,
I think, it's definitely a company we've all tracked. Yeah, so it's a company I've seen, since the 1998 groundbreaking. I was there at Sri Perumbudur. So it's been an amazing story. I think Hyundai is a company that can never, ever be underestimated. We've said this. So, well, I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. We'll be talking a lot more about future products, future models, future companies, what's happening, the latest trends. So do tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. Thanks for watching.